Jaw-dropping, forgotten but not any less deadly, the shadows behind the legends. The untold Islamic warriors who changed history, then vanished from it. History is written by the victories, but it's edited by the survivors. We all know the names that shine: Saladin, Mehmed the Conqueror, Baybars. They're praised in documentaries, textbooks, and pop culture. Their stories are etched into marble, woven into national myths, and retold across centuries as symbols of Islamic might, courage, and strategy. But behind those giants stood men just as lethal. Warriors who fought the wars that made those legends possible and were then pushed into the shadows. Some were too controversial to celebrate. Some died too soon. Others were simply erased, their glory absorbed by those who followed. But these forgotten warriors made history bleed. They faced impossible odds, turned tides of war, and shaped the rise of empires that might have otherwise collapsed. Without them, there would be no Saladin, no victory at Ain Jalut, no Seljuk surge into Byzantium. This is not just about remembrance, it's about restoration. In this video, we resurrect the stories of three such figures, names that should stand tall next to Khalid ibn al-Walid and Tariq ibn Ziyad. They are Nur al-Din Zengi, the Shadow Kingmaker who built the path for Saladin; Alp Arslan, the Turkic Sultan who smashed the Byzantine myth of invincibility; and Saif ad-Din Qutuz, the war-scarred underdog who broke the Mongol machine. They weren't remembered because they weren't meant to be remembered. Now, we bring them back to life, one warrior at a time. One, Nur al-Din Zengi, the warrior who lit the flame Saladin would carry. The kingmaker history tried to erase. Before the name Saladin was whispered across Crusader courts in fear and awe, before Jerusalem was reclaimed and Christian empires shaken to their core, there was a man who laid the groundwork for it all. His name was Nur al-Din Mahmud Zengi, and without him, Saladin may never have existed as we know him. He didn't just fight battles, he fought for unity. He waged war against both external enemies and internal corruption, navigating the fractured Islamic world of the 12th century with the mind of a strategist and the heart of a mujahid. But history would bury him beneath the shadow of his own protege. Let's resurrect him. Origins: born into power, forged by chaos. Born in 1118 CE, Nur al-Din was the son of Imad al-Din Zengi, a Turkic Atabag, military governor, who ruled Mosul and Aleppo. His father was known for ruthless campaigns, but it was Nur al-Din who inherited both ambition and discipline. When his father was assassinated in 1146 CE, Nur al-Din took control of Aleppo, a region surrounded by Crusader states, Shia rival dynasties, and internal Sunni fragmentation. Most leaders would try to hold what they had. Nur al-Din wanted it all, not for himself, but for Islam. Battles and campaigns: the quiet thunder before the storm. Battle of Inab, 1149 CE. Nur al-Din's most iconic early victory came when he crushed the combined forces of the Crusader Prince of Antioch, Raymond of Poitiers. Raymond was killed and his severed head sent to the Abbasid Caliph in Baghdad as a symbol of victory. It was a devastating psychological blow to Crusader morale and turned Nur al-Din into a serious threat in Christian Europe. Siege of Damascus, 1154 CE. While other leaders attacked outward, Nur al-Din looked inward. Damascus was ruled by fellow Muslims, but plagued by decadence and appeasement with crusaders. He took the city and declared it the base for Islamic unity. From here, he began shaping a new ideology, jihad as a political, spiritual, and military project. This was more than conquest. He was building a unified front, and jihad was not chaos, it was strategy.
The ideological war, jihad as statecraft. Nur al-Din wasn't just a sword, he was a scholar, a patron of learning, and a man of deep religious conviction. He built schools, madrasas, to train Islamic scholars and judges loyal to Sunni orthodoxy. He funded mosques, public hospitals, and promoted Sharia law, not just to inspire piety, but to cement social control and political legitimacy. His slogan? Victory is from Allah and near. It was inscribed on his coins and echoed in his courts. He crafted an image of himself not as a power-hungry warlord, but as a divinely guided unifier, the very image that Saladin would later adopt and amplify. What made him deadly? Long-game strategist. Nur al-Din rarely rushed into war. He used truces, assassinations, alliances, and even religious pressure to weaken his enemies from within. Psychological warfare. While Crusader kingdoms feared his armies, Muslim emirs feared his ideology. He made compromise with Crusaders look like heresy. Silent influence. He played a masterstroke by sending his general Sherku to Egypt, laying the groundwork for Sunni control and for Saladin's rise as his lieutenant. Legacy. Why history buried him beneath Saladin. Here's the truth. Saladin was not a fluke. Saladin was Nur al-Din's weapon. Without Nur al-Din, there would be no Ayyubid dynasty. Egypt would have remained under Shia Fatimid rule. The Crusaders might have kept Jerusalem for another century. But Nur al-Din died suddenly in 1174, just before he could see the full fruit of his empire's transformation. Saladin, his subordinate, would take the mantle and eclipse his memory in the eyes of the world. But Nur al-Din was the spark. Saladin was the wildfire. One created the cause, the other delivered the sword. Ready to meet the next warrior history tried to forget? Two, Alp Arslan, the Sultan who made Byzantium kneel. From nomad to emperor, the rise of a Turkic lion. Alp Arslan, meaning heroic lion, was born around 1029 CE into the powerful Seljuk dynasty, a group of Turkic nomads who had risen to dominate large parts of Central Asia and the Middle East. Unlike many rulers of his time, Alp Arslan combined the fierce independence of the steppe warriors with a sharp strategic mind and deep commitment to Islam. By the mid-11th century, the Byzantine Empire was a vast, wealthy power, but riddled with internal strife, corruption, and complacency. The Seljuks had already begun pushing into eastern Anatolia, and Alp Arslan was determined to finish what his predecessors started, to break Byzantine dominance and open the gates for Muslim expansion into Anatolia. The Battle of Manzikert, 1071 CE, the day empires trembled. The battle took place near the town of Manzikert, modern Malazgirt, Turkey. Facing Alp Arslan was the Byzantine Emperor Romanos IV Diogenes, who assembled an army estimated between 70,000 and 150,000 soldiers, significantly larger than the Seljuk forces, which numbered around 20,000. But numbers alone couldn't win the day. How Alp Arslan won. Superior mobility. His army was composed largely of light cavalry and archers, skilled in hit-and-run tactics, unlike the heavily armored Byzantine infantry and cavalry that moved slower. Psychological warfare and deception. Alp Arslan famously used feigned retreats to lure Byzantine forces into traps, breaking their formations and morale. Masterful command. He maintained tight discipline, coordinating his troops with incredible precision, even across difficult terrain. Exploiting Byzantine discord. Romanos faced betrayal within his ranks and poor communication, which Alp Arslan exploited ruthlessly. The result: Romanos IV was captured, a devastating blow to Byzantine prestige. The Seljuks secured vast territories in Anatolia, which would become a foothold for future Muslim empires. This defeat shattered Byzantine military dominance in the region and accelerated its long decline. Alp Arslan's victory paved the way for centuries of Turkish presence in Anatolia, shaping the future Ottoman heartland. What made Alp Arslan deadly? Strategic visionary. He didn't just fight to win battles. He aimed to rewrite the political map of the Middle East and Anatolia. Blended cultures. Alp Arslan combined nomadic warfare tactics with Persian administrative sophistication, creating a hybrid model that was both flexible and durable. Respect and ruthlessness. Known for magnanimity towards defeated foes, yet merciless to those who defied him. Legacy. The lion who roared into history. Alp Arslan died in 1072 CE, just a year after Manzikert, but his impact was permanent. He cracked open the gates of Byzantium, exposing it to waves of Turkish migration. His descendants founded the Sultanate of Rum in Anatolia, a crucial stepping stone toward the Ottoman Empire. His victory is often cited as the event that indirectly sparked the First Crusade, as Europe reacted to the rising power in the East. Though less romanticized than Saladin or Mehmed, Alp Arslan's legacy lives on in the very geography of modern Turkey and the deep cultural shifts his victory triggered. Alp Arslan proved that a smaller, smarter force, led by a decisive and cunning leader, could overturn centuries of imperial might. Next, we turn to the warrior who faced what seemed like an unstoppable force and stopped it dead in its tracks. 3. Saif ad-Din Qutuz, the Sultan who defied the Mongol apocalypse, the reluctant leader in the eye of the storm. In the mid-13th century, the Mongol Empire was an unrelenting force of destruction, sweeping from East Asia across Persia and into the Middle East. The Mongols had razed cities, annihilated armies, and terrified entire civilizations. Their advance seemed unstoppable, a tidal wave destined to wash away everything in its path. Into this chaos stepped Saif ad-Din Qutuz, a man whose rise to power was anything but certain.
a former Mamluk soldier and court official, Qutuz was thrust into leadership in 1259 CE after the death of the previous sultan. With the Mongols looming at the gates of Egypt and Syria, many saw his appointment as a desperate gamble. But Qutuz was no ordinary ruler. The Battle of Ain Jalut, 1260 CE, when the unthinkable happened. Facing the Mongol army was an overwhelming challenge. The Mongols, led by General Kitbuka, fielded elite cavalry known for lightning-fast attacks and ruthless efficiency. Their reputation for annihilating entire armies preceded them. Despite this, Qutuz made a bold and dangerous decision. He marched his relatively smaller Mamluk army out to meet the Mongols in the Jezreel Valley near Ain Jalut. How Qutuz turned the tide? Masterful use of terrain. Qutuz chose a battleground that neutralized Mongol cavalry advantages. Superior intelligence and espionage. He anticipated Mongol movements and cut off their supply lines. Unbreakable morale and discipline. Qutuz united Mamluk forces, inspiring fierce loyalty and resolve. Clever tactical feints. He used ambushes and staged retreats to disorient the Mongols. The result? The Mongol advance was halted for the first time in history. Kitbuka was killed and the Mongol army was routed, shattering the myth of Mongol invincibility. The victory saved Egypt, Syria, and the wider Islamic world from total conquest and devastation. What made Qutuz deadly? Bold and decisive. He did not hesitate to confront a seemingly unbeatable foe head-on. Unifier of factions. Qutuz brought together fractious Mamluk factions and created a united front. Symbol of resistance. His leadership inspired future Muslim rulers to resist foreign domination fiercely.
Legacy. The man who bought time for civilization. Qutuz's victory at Ain Jalut in 1260 is often called one of the most decisive battles in history, stopping the Mongol tide and preserving the Islamic world's cultural and political institutions. Sadly, Qutuz's triumph was short-lived. He was assassinated later that year in a palace coup led by his lieutenant Baybars, who would become another legendary sultan. Yet Qutuz's moment remains immortal, a testament to courage in the face of annihilation, and proof that even the deadliest warriors can come from the most unexpected places. When history faced extinction, it was Saif ad-Din Qutuz who stood tall and refused to fall. Conclusion: the shadows that shaped history. History often shines its spotlight on the most dazzling figures, the great conquerors, the legendary kings, the celebrated heroes whose names echo through time. But beneath that glare lie the shadows, the architects, the stormbringers, the warriors who built the foundation and turned the tide long before glory was theirs to claim. Nur al-Din Zengi, the relentless unifier who forged the path for Saladin's legendary crusade. Alp Arslan, the cunning Turkish lion whose victory at Manjigert cracked open the gates of Byzantium. Saif ad-Din Qutuz, the unlikely sultan who stopped the unstoppable Mongol juggernaut and preserved a civilization on the brink of extinction. These men were more than mere footnotes. They were the pulse behind empires rising and falling, the iron fists behind banners unfurled. They fought wars not only with swords and arrows, but with strategy, ideology, and vision. Yet their stories were suppressed, overshadowed, or forgotten sometimes by the very successors who owed their crowns to these shadow warriors. Why? Because history, like power, is a carefully edited narrative, and those who write it often decide who is remembered and who is erased. But true power, the kind that shapes empires and changes the world, can never be fully buried. As we peel back the layers of history, these forgotten warriors emerge, fierce and unyielding, reminding us that the greatest legacies often begin in the shadows. The saga is far from over. Who else waits in the wings? What other untold stories of courage, cunning, and conquest remain hidden beneath the sands of time? Stay ready. The shadows still have stories to tell.